let's talk about Sonic Heroes. A great game, but I think it has flaws, especially in the story department. I have a lot to say, so let's get started. It's a game that feels like the beginning of the end, yet it's still in Sonic's great era, the 2000s, so it leaves a very complex legacy. I'm not one of these fans that thinks that Heroes is some bad game or it's like a stain on Sonic's legacy. It really isn't. I always thought it was a great game when I was a teenager and even today. So most of its problems come from its story. There's just a lot of things in Sonic Heroes that doesn't make sense when it comes to the characters. Just stuff that doesn't make sense and potential that's wasted, which leaves Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 to be way better than it. Before I get into the interesting, juicy stuff about the story stuff that doesn't make sense and the wasted potential, let me just quickly talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is fine. I think it's good. Sometimes it's a little wonky and you can fall off of cliffs and stuff, but for the most part, I think it's fun and I think it's good. It's been massively over-exaggerated that the gameplay is like bad or terrible. It's good, in my opinion. Now, I'd say the only two flaws in the gameplay are, number one, Team Dark. Their gameplay is way too difficult, especially in the final two stages. It didn't need to be that damn difficult just because it's Team Dark. I mean, give me a break. Some of the levels that you play as with Team Dark are way harder than any of the levels in Sonic Adventure 2. So the second flaw in the gameplay is I despised the fact that you needed to get all 7 fucking Chaos Emeralds in those fucking annoying bonus stages. It was trying to be a throwback to the Genesis days where you got the 3D special stage and you have to get all the emeralds to get the final ending. It was cheeky that they did that, but it really frustrated me because the 3D special stages, naturally, of course, they get harder and harder and harder, and but it's ridiculous. Like, why do I have to do the 3D special stages just to get the final ending? You didn't have to do that in Sonic Adventure 1, and you didn't have to do it in Sonic Adventure 2, so why in the fuck do I have to do it here? The special stages, the bonus stages, should just be that. Bonus stages. You don't have to do them to get the final ending. It was just ridiculously difficult. I mean, not all the bonus stages were hard, but a lot of them were. So, what the fuck? But anyway, moving on from the gameplay, let's talk about everything else. The real interesting stuff. Well, number one, Mighty the Armadillo. I love Mighty the Armadillo, but even if you don't love Mighty the Armadillo, it's really not the point that the character was screwed if you don't love the character, because just from a story perspective, it's shitty and doesn't make sense that Mighty is not even mentioned at all in the entire game. They ignore him like he never existed. Yet, they're bringing back the Chaotix, and Mighty the Armadillo was always a member of the Chaotix. He was in the 32X game, and he was in the Archie comics. So Mighty was always an important character in Knuckles' lineage of the Chaotix. And that's another thing. Knuckles is supposed to know the Chaotix. He was the leader of the Chaotix. And in the Archie comics he was, and also in the 32X game. The title was called Knuckles Chaotix. That was his team. Just like how Sonic had the Freedom Fighters. But no, in this game, in all the cutscenes, Sonic Heroes meets up with the Chaotix. Knuckles never talks to the Chaotix. He doesn't acknowledge the fact that he used to be their leader. It's like in this game, it doesn't exist. And that's fucking ridiculous. That's so lame. This whole build-up, the excitement of having the Chaotix return, and not having Knuckles acknowledge them, or act like Knuckles never knew them, or had anything to do with them? Are you kidding me? That's fucking ridiculous. They had an entire game that they created and dedicated on the Sega 32X game console. So that's ridiculous. So what are you going to tell me? Oh, because Knuckles Chaotix on the 32X, it wasn't a popular game, so people aren't going to know that? Yet, people remembered the Chaotix enough to find it exciting that they were going to be in Heroes. All the Sonic fans got excited when they heard that the Chaotix are in the game. We all saw it in the magazines before the game came out, so people still knew who the Chaotix were. So why in the fuck would you exclude Knuckles from that? I get that Knuckles is not part of the Chaotix anymore, because it makes sense for him to be on the Sonic team, but why can't Knuckles at least acknowledge them? Why can't he talk about it? Why can't they mention the history? Why not in the first cutscene of the Chaotix storyline, why couldn't Vector talk to Espio about how Knuckles used to be our leader, and now he went all rogue and everything, and now he's more interested in palling around with Sonic and he abandoned us or something. Like, why couldn't they just fucking mentioned it? God. And the same with fucking Mighty the Armadillo. Yes, I know what you're all thinking. It does make sense for Mighty to not be included because Vector is bigger than Mighty. So they're like, well, Vector should be the muscle of the group, the power one, right? So there's no room for Mighty. There's not a fit for him. But why couldn't they have just mentioned him? Then again, why couldn't Mighty just appear? Like, why can't there be a picture of Mighty the Armadillo on the wall in their office in the first cutscene? And also, technically, Mighty the Armadillo is stronger than Vector the Crocodile. He seemed that way, at least in the comics, and that's why his name is Mighty. He's Mighty the Armadillo. He's the strongest of the Chaotix. All the Chaotix had their own strengths and weaknesses. Charmy was the one that flew. Espio was the ninja, etc. Not that Knuckles himself and Vector aren't strong, but Mighty's name was called that because he's strong. He's the toughest of the Chaotix. So it would make sense for Mighty to be the power of the group. But no, like, he has to be ignored now for the rest of history. I mean, they did bring back Mighty the Armadillo in Sonic Mania, but that's fucking, what, 20 years later? What was wrong with bringing him back in the 2000s? He wasn't a cool enough character for them to give a shit about? They were just like, well, we're only going to bring back these 3 members of the Chaotix. Fuck that shit. To me, Mighty was always a more interesting character than Vector. Vector is just some big, goofy crocodile. Yes, he's charming. Yes, he's cool. But Mighty the Armadillo? Like, he's intriguing. He's interesting. Like, his name, his look, just everything about him is so cool looking. I mean, he almost looks like Shadow the Hedgehog, like his color scheme. I also don't see why you couldn't have had Mighty appear in the game in general. Why couldn't Mighty the Armadillo be in some of the cutscenes? Like, you can see him in the background, or he runs into the other characters and talks to them, and he mentions the Chaotix and all that kind of stuff. And then Mighty could have teamed up with the Chaotix at the very end. He's now part of the Chaotix again. They could have had this separate storyline where Mighty was going his own way and he left the Chaotix. Like, the first cutscene could have mentioned him. You see him sporadically throughout the game and he runs into them. Mighty argues with the rest of the boys, and then by the final part of the game he shows up and then they all make up and now Mighty is part of the Chaotix again. Because even in that final cutscene against the giant, lizard of Neo Metal Sonic, and why couldn't you have just included an extra thing where Mighty could have attacked also? It's just like, why? Why does it have to be so precise and so perfect? Just because you needed 3 characters, that means you can't mention or show Mighty the Armadillo at all? Act like he's not important? Like, at all? Like, fuck you guys. Fuck Sega for doing that. Because it fucked over Mighty the Armadillo for fucking 20 years, motherfuckers. Until fucking Mania came out. Like, give me a fucking break. Come on. And also, I thought Sega would think that Mighty was more special than the rest of the Chaotix because he appeared in more games than the rest of the Chaotix. He appeared in 2. He appeared in Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, the arcade game, before Knuckles Chaotix. Then he appeared in Knuckles Chaotix, and then he was in the comics. So you're talking about a character that appeared in more games than the rest of the Chaotix. Yet, so fuck Mighty, though, for some reason. Fuck that shit. And it's too late now, because I should have made this video back in the day, in the 2000s, I should have complained about how Mighty wasn't there, because no one ever talks about this. But now it's kind of weird. It's too late. It was 20 years ago. I guess if they remake Heroes, they should include Mighty and make it better. That would be fucking awesome, But talking about this stuff now about Heroes, it kind of feels like you're complaining about a corpse. It's dead. It's done. But still, it's always been important to me, and I'm very happy I'm finally voicing my opinion about Sonic Heroes.